Hi. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Dave Proctor. I may look a little different to you, and there's good reason for that. I'm having a hard time reading my notes so close up without looking at the ceiling to look down through my bifocals. Please excuse me, and also please pardon me if I seem to be looking away from you during this presentation. My notes are on the screen. The camera is there. My notes are there. But trust me, I have you in my heart and in my mind as I speak these words. I had the privilege and the joy of working as a group facilitator for the Boys Council in Raton from last October, September 30th actually, through this past March. And I feel honored that I've been asked to address you today after resigning from that position. Today, I'll attempt to describe to you the scope of my experience as a council facilitator in less than 10 minutes. I want to make it clear, first of all, that I did not leave because I was dissatisfied with the nature of this work. There were outside factors that caused me to take another position. Now, that may sound cold to you, but to the contrary, I had become very motivated by seeing the positive impact that my influence was having upon these youngsters. Youngsters? Ugh. I feel like my grandpa when I use that word, but this impact was affected by the application of the training and the curriculum that was provided to us through the One Circle Foundation's programs. So that was how my job officially began. I was traveling to Los Alamos with my co-facilitator-to-be, Patrick Tafoya. I had little idea how the Boys Council even worked, but in 2 good days of training, we practiced and simulated facilitating discussions on difficult subjects by engaging with small groups of other trainees. It felt very awkward to me at first, I have to confess, but by the end of the training, I understood some of the skills and techniques to encourage open discussion, as well as how to minimize the distractions that inevitably arise during any session. So let's fast forward a couple of months. By this time, we were well established in our groups, and I had been amazed at how our program was received by most of the boys and young men with whom we dealt. What had begun as a detached exercise with boys who regarded me as a stranger, really more like a substitute teacher than as a mentor or a confidant, had progressed to a weekly gathering that most of us looked forward to. There seemed to be a few core individuals in each group that truly needed this interaction with the council every week, and I was becoming emotionally involved in our group as discussions peeled back the layers and layers of defenses that boys learned to build around themselves in order to deal with their peers and their elders and girls and their parents or their guardians. But something else even more amazing than that was occurring. I was finding myself peeling back my own layers. In order to encourage these boys and young men to share their experiences, their doubts, their fears, their anxieties and troubles out in the open with a group of their peers, well, I had to set an example. I discovered that as I rolled back my own memories, many of which were pretty deeply buried, I was able to find experiences that related very closely to the subjects we discussed. I had to make myself more vulnerable to the same judgment from these boys that they themselves were subjected to. I exposed some of my own flaws. I described times when I made poor decisions that had serious consequences, and I tried to make it as real for them as possible so that they could examine their own circumstances and try to learn from my mistakes as well as my victories. That is how the council works, encouraging these youngsters to think before they act, to make well thought out decisions. Now, the Boys Council curriculums are designed to be increasingly more challenging in terms of subject matter every subsequent session. Pat and I found ourselves sometimes having to summon our own courage as we prepared for some of these sessions because the subject matter was so intense. It has to be, you understand, in order to get to the heart of the situations that impact our clients' lives so that they can examine some of the real existing issues that cause them so much trouble. Real issues that no one ever discusses because most people avoid communicating about these things with anyone else unless they're given an outlet they can trust that helps them begin to get these things out into the open. The advancing curriculum developed by the One Circle Foundation does that very well. The difference between me and the boys that I worked with is that I've already lived all the way through these experiences, and I came out on this side a stronger, better-rounded man. I have already learned many of life's lessons. Not all, I'm sure, but many. I believe that these boys can now see me as a man who once was a vulnerable, naive, scared little boy who survived his monsters and became a well-adjusted adult. And I hope I've given them inspiration to use the tools that we gave them to make themselves strong, well-adjusted men who can give inspiration to their own children and others who can benefit from their experience. My time with the Boys Council groups was pretty short, but the impact on me was very powerful. Because of that, I know that lasting impressions were made on these young men. As much as the lessons we learned together have become sort of subconsciously embedded into our character, I have very real memories of seeing the excitement and enthusiasm and understanding that was imparted to these guys. I saw lights go on in their eyes as realization crept in, or sometimes leapt into their minds. I saw real tears. I saw disbelief turn to acceptance. And yes, I saw a few of these guys who just could not open up to the program. But I hope that they too gained some hope from attending the council. I think they will need a higher level of help from trained professionals and perhaps treatment. And ultimately, I believe that they need God to do what man cannot. And I hope that they can be open to His divine assistance. I don't want to walk away from this talk without acknowledging the other people with whom I worked. Well, they each helped me along the way as I adjusted to a new job and a new workplace, and they were a joy to work with. Such wonderful people. My co-facilitator, Pat Tafoya, he shared these experiences with me, and I'm sure he has also found parts of himself in these sessions. On the girls' circle side, Cassie Phillips and Mona Sandoval. Oh, God bless these dedicated women who provide outstanding guidance to the girls and young women in their groups. I believe they're probably nodding their heads during this talk as I speak because they recognize the same things in their program as we do on the boys' side. I applaud their dedication as they continue their work. Danielle Archuleta, whose drive and dedication to the clients we serve, coupled with vision to refocus her facilitators, has resulted in a nationally recognized program here in Raton. She works tirelessly, devoting much of her own time and resources to ensure the success of the programs. I hope the members of the board appreciate her efforts, and I hope you find a way to compensate her fairly at some point. She is the definition of overworked and underpaid. As I've said earlier, I wish I could be with you in person. I'd love to be able to answer any questions or to discuss in more detail the things I have told you today. Danielle has my contact information. If any of you has any question that you'd like to discuss with me, feel free to use my email address, and I promise to respond, and if necessary, we'll get together on the phone or even in person next time I'm in Raton. So let me conclude by saying that the rewards of being a facilitator for the Boys Council were huge, not financially speaking. The rewards I speak of cannot be earned and spent like your paycheck. They're embedded in my soul, and they will always be a part of me. I applaud those who have chosen this field as their lifelong calling. I've received a different call, but I feel privileged to have had the opportunity to help shape the character of these youngsters, of whom I have grown so very fond. Again, I would have liked to have been able to join you all. Please enjoy the rest of your retreat, and God bless you all.